Hello, all. This is Doctorate Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. And in this particular video, I want to talk about when you should actually do a doctorate, in particularly within a doctorate of business administration or a PhD in strategy, finance, accounting, marketing, anything that happens within a business school. So if you don't know me, I'm a professor of innovation, strategy, and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out to become a professor that I wanted to create something that I could pay the favor forward or backward, I guess. But I just wanted to help out as many people as I can. So I created this sort of sharing economy proofreading platform so you can get feedback on your writing. That's the whole reciprocity thing. And then doing these YouTube videos to pay the favor forward and give you as much information as I possibly can about this kind of career, right? So when should you do a doctorate, or when should you think about doing a PhD? I think the answer is pretty complex, and there's lots of things to think about. And I've got a few sort of tips or factors to think about, but I think that there's lots, and it's a really personal choice for most of us. And you should really think about that in terms of whether you should do a PhD or do a graduate degree in any sort of particular field. It's a really important thing for you to think about. And it's very unique for everybody in terms of their doctoral journey and how they discover it, right? So the first one is do you actually have a research topic? Now, do you actually need a research topic for a PhD when you start out? No, absolutely not. I think most people, or the vast majority of the people, do have something in terms of what they're interested in going forward. But one thing that I do know, and one thing that I've figured out, is you learn so much along the way. So it would be kind of crazy to assume that you would know everything before you even start in terms of what you're interested in. For me, I didn't really figure out what I was interested in, and maybe I still don't know what I'm interested in until I was a couple of years in to the PhD program. And this was after I did a research master's and I did undergraduate research along the way, and I'm sort of figuring things out and trying to discover who I am. It's a real personal journey in terms of understanding who you are as a person. I think you begin to learn more about yourself and what you're interested in as you go. So don't be afraid when you first start out that you don't have an idea. But as long as you have a general idea, sort of general thing that you're looking at, that is a good sort of sense going forward in what you should be doing and thinking about. And you do learn along the way. You learn a tremendous amount of material. So don't be afraid at the beginning whether you actually have a research topic, but you should have a general idea or a general thing that you're kind of going to go push forward in and sort of do discovery in. A second thing that I think is important to consider, and this one's probably not mentioned that much, but it's really thinking about in terms of your age. And I'm not sort of pointing out that you could do a PhD or you could do a doctorate at any age. It's a wonderful sort of thing to choose. You can, if you're 75 years old, you could definitely do it. And the thing is, you have to sort of weigh against the opportunity cost of what you're trying to do in terms of the benefit that you're actually going to get. And it's a really personal choice in terms of what you want to do going forward. So there is lots of people that are younger, really young when they start a PhD, and there's lots of people that are really old when they start a PhD, however you might define that. So if you're 21 years old, you might think 40 is really old, but now that I'm 39 years old, I don't think that at all, right? So you just have to sort of think about what it means for you, and just know that there is a significant opportunity cost, because it's going to take you a long time before you actually start picking up with what you're doing. And there's this trade-off between doing larger projects and more sort of in-depth projects that take a long time to get into sort of the pipeline, and I'm just putting out there, it just takes a long time to get a research publication sort of going. And depending on the field that you're doing, it takes longer in some fields than others. So if you want to do a journal publication in Science or Nature or something like that, it's going to take you a significant amount of investment to get there. And so, you can definitely do really amazing things, but it's something to think about in terms of sort of weighing where you are as a person. I'm really just kind of being clear with that, and sort of putting that in terms of is it worth it? And is this the thing that you're really passionate about? And if you start at the age of 60 years old, then you're going to realize that there is a lot to go forward with what you're doing, and you can do a lot of discovery at that age. Um, but just sort of weigh that in terms of what you're doing going forward. And that's all I'm going to point out, that it's a real active decision that you have to think about, and how difficult it is in what you're doing. And, if you're doing the thing that you love, it doesn't matter. It really, truly doesn't matter what you're doing, but it's something to think about going forward. The third thing I think is really important is sort of this trade-off, or thinking through whether you actually trained for a PhD. Now, anybody can sort of do this. I'm not going to point out I'm not bright at all, and you can do all sorts of things with whoever it is. You just have to sort of dedicate your time to it. But there is a significant amount of training to get to the stage where you can sort of feel that you're comfortable with what you're doing. And you have to put in the time and effort to actually get to that stage, that training. So just think about all of the, not only prerequisite courses and things like that in terms of developing you as an individual, as a researcher, but then as sort of the wider area of research that you're doing and understanding. So maybe you need to get some better understanding statistics. So go get that, right? You can do that before you actually jump in and do a PhD. And it's going to help you out a lot along the way in terms of being a superstar in the particular field. And just think of this as more of a journey in terms of getting to a place where you have a better understanding of something. It's not an end at all to get a PhD. It is really a journey to think about how you are discovering and understanding the world around you and asking questions around you. Ask anybody that does this career, and they're going to say it never ends. Even when you're 85 years old, it doesn't end. You're still doing discovery. You're still sort of curious about the world around you. So that's really what it's about. And you have to sort of think about whether you're trained to get into it and sort of push it forward, and continue to be trained along the way, and continue to do training for yourself. A fourth thing that's important, and this is probably the biggest hurdle, or a lot of really big hurdles for a lot of people, is just thinking about the financial resources that you have and sort of managing that. I have a number of different videos about sort of managing the financial resources and sort of budgeting and thinking through things. Being a professor in a business school, you really have to consider that and think about all of this. It's really important. You only have a very small stipend. It's generally below the poverty line for most programs around the world, and you have to manage your money appropriately in that time, unless you're really unusual and you have some amazing sort of scholarship or something like that. But most people, it's below the poverty line, and you have to manage a family. Just sort of think through in terms of what that means for you. You can watch some of the older videos in terms of that. And then the fifth thing is thinking about and making sure that you have strong sort of moral support and family support along the way. It is a real grind. It's difficult, and you have to make sure that you have that support to go forward, whether you actually believe in yourself, sort of have the passion to keep going, and whether you have the family support. Now, there's lots of people that are not going to understand what you're doing, and that is normal. To be part of that process, not a lot of people are going to understand what you're doing, because it's unusual for most families, most people around there, to do something around you, to do something like this, unless you come from an academic family. But not a lot of people do. Lots of people in academics come from academic families, but a lot of people don't. And so just realize that you just need some sort of support and to keep you going, because it is challenging, it's difficult, and it's really hard to explain what I mean by that, but it is just a grind. And just having somebody there that you can talk to. I had my wife to help me along the way and sort of complain and think about these kind of things. But it's having some sort of support is very, very helpful going forward. So those are the things that I would consider in terms of determining when you should choose to do a doctorate in PhD or whatever it is that you're thinking about. Just think about having these sort of factors at play and how they sort of weigh, and whether you're actually ready for that kind of stuff, right? And this is a really big personal decision for you, and whether you actually have the passion and drive to go forward. It really is up to you to do that going forward. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up And do subscribe to the YouTube channel. I do appreciate it. It really gives me feedback in what you like, and then I can do more of that kind of stuff. All right. Take care. Bye.